I'm married to my husband and we have two children, Isaac from my first marriage and Tiana with my now husband. This whole situation started somewhere around May 2022, where me and Isaac were at the local park, just doing our own thing. My son was just playing with some other child at the monkey bars when I saw this woman approach me. She had red hair and her face seemed tear-stained. I became concerned because I thought she had been crying. I proceeded to ask her what was wrong, if she was alright, but she kept staring at my son. The more she looked at him, the more she sobbed. Then all of a sudden, she sprints towards him running, screaming, "Michael!" She kept calling him that, and it freaked me out. I mean, she was running to my kid and calling him with a different name. My son and the other child got scared, and I approached them before she did as I was faster than her. I then screamed at her to get lost, but she just stood there as I held my son, and she seemed pretty enraged. Then she muttered some things, but I could not hear her as she stomped away. The other child's father and I talked for a bit, and he seemed alarmed by what happened. He predicted that she was probably a grieving mother, and that my son looked like the child she lost. I was still disturbed and took my son home. Ever since then, I have been afraid to take any of my children to any public areas despite my husband's reassurance. Skip to June 2nd, 2022. I get a call from my school stating that a woman who had been volunteering for lunch duty kept mentioning that my son was her quote-unquote Mikey Bear, and that she had been looking for him for years. They told me that another volunteer who had been working with her reported this. I was scared as heck and I acted immediately by signing my kids out for the day, and when I called the school the next day, I was informed she no longer works there, so I became pretty freaked out. Skip to July 13th, 2022. It was Tiana's 5th birthday, and we decided to host it at a park in my in-laws' hometown. Everything went well, although I was paranoid. It was then somewhere around 9 p.m. when we began tidying up, and as I looked at many oak trees behind, I could have sworn I saw her. I screamed at the top of my lungs and started chasing after her, but she somehow got away. Ever since then, I have not seen her, but I feel like this is not the end of it. I was always a small and sickly child. I looked young for my age, and my family and I lived out of town, about 8 miles. Our little community was next to a highway. The school bus would drop me off 2 blocks away from home. One day, I noticed a red truck following slowly behind me, so slow that I figured they were just looking for a house or something. I ignored it and walked to my house, and that was the end of that. Consistently, this truck would follow slowly behind me. After a couple of days of this, I walked into my house and looked out the window. Inside was an older man and a black lab. He was staring at me, idling inside his truck. Then he pulled away. I decided enough was enough. I told my parents, but of course my sister was quick to jump in and that I was lying. But my mom thankfully believed me. She drove me to the bus stop the next morning. The red truck was there, across the street at the gas station, pointing towards the bus. I got on the bus and my mom decided to drive around the truck. She described the scene. The man was disheveled and dirty, hunched over in his seat just staring at the bus. His license plates were caked in mud, so she couldn't make them out. It freaked her out so much she called the police and the school. I went to school and was quickly pulled into the office. The man had been spotted at the school, waiting in his truck. That day I rode the bus home. This time the truck was parked along the street. I would have to walk past this man's driver's side door to get home. I debated, considering running for it. Apparently this man was getting desperate now that he was spotted. A police car showed up and I talked to the policeman. They went to go talk to the man. He quickly pulled away from the curb and took off into the highway. I never saw him again, and I don't believe he was ever caught. Because of this experience, I was extremely guarded and paranoid with my own daughter. The world is a terrifying place these days, and children go missing so easily. I don't like to think about it. If I had been grabbed, I wouldn't be here typing this. My kids wouldn't exist. I was lucky. Many children are not. When I was 12, maybe a little older, I was waiting for my ride after school one day when this big white family van pulls up in front of me and asks if I'm waiting for my ride. My family had a van just like this once, so it wasn't suspicious or anything to me, but I was dumb and didn't register that yeah, I am, and he was asking an obvious question because here I am sitting outside the school by myself. But I answered anyways, and he then asked what my name was, and I hesitated, but he explained that he was looking for someone, so I gave it. After I told him my name, he said, "Oh, so it is you. Your mom asked me to come pick you up from school." He then introduces himself as Sam, my mom's nephew, and I had never really met my mom's family, so I was none the wiser. Eager to get home and out of the cold, I didn't question him much even though I was skeptical. I just jumped in the car, and thinking back on it, I now realize how dumb that was and how lucky I was to get away. I got in and we started driving towards the opposite direction of my house. At first I thought no big deal of it because there was a route this way to my place, but it was just farther. But soon we were passing that route too, and out of nowhere I realized we were on the motorway. Now all traces of tiredness had left me, and I was on the edge of tears. I asked him if he could just take me home, and that if my mom sent him, then he should know that I'm not really allowed to go out after school, but he just kept ignoring me. At this point, I was officially bawling my eyes out, and cars that were passing us on the motorway or standing next to us in traffic were starting to stare. At one point, I was crying so much, he slammed his hands on the steering wheel and started mumbling how this would be easier for both of us if I would just shut up. But now I wasn't thinking straight, and I knew that anything would be better than making it to wherever he was taking me. So the next time the car slowed down, I unlocked the door and I jumped out. In all honesty, I wasn't thinking at all because if I thought about it, I would have chickened out, and for once, I thank God I did not. I hit the ground and landed on my left leg. The pain was so bad, but I didn't care because in my head, anything was better than being in that car. The dude didn't even bat an eye. I feel like in the chaos, I see him try and grab me, but once I was outside, he just sped away, and the driver that almost hit me, but stopped just in time, got out and ran towards me. The police were called, and my parents as well, but to this day, I am not allowed to wait outside anywhere, and even before I'm done with whatever I'm doing, my parents would be outside waiting.